James, you're against any reference to race, positive or negative, in the Constitution. Are these measures being put forward just too ambitious? And ultimately, really, the goal is to improve the life outcomes, educational, health, life expectancy for Aboriginal people.
Yeah, it's not so much whether it's too ambitious or not ambitious enough. I think some of the really interesting things out of Uluru was a widespread agreement that symbolic recognition was not the way to go forward. It had previously been suggested by many people that we should have a preamble of some kind of the Constitution that would symbolically recognise Indigenous Australians, and the Uluru Summit was very clear that was not what they were after. They wanted more tangible results than that, and I completely respect and understand that. I also understand and respect why Aboriginal people feel that they want to have a greater voice in Australian politics and why they want better consultation, because there have been decades of failure in Indigenous policy of governments of both persuasions, so I understand that. There are some big questions to be answered, though, over the coming months about how those things are achieved, how those aspirations are achieved, and I do have some reservations about how we do it in the Constitution. I think there is constitutional risk in enshrining a representative voice of some kind in the Constitution, and I also think, as a matter of principle, that we should always ensure that all Australians are equally represented and have equal opportunity to be represented. And I don't like the idea of dividing Australians by race by saying that some Australians are represented by the Australian Parliament and other Australians are represented by another representative body. It is the job of the Parliament to represent everyone, and if we're not doing that job well enough, well, then we absolutely need to work on that.
But without taking up too much time, and James, what people might not understand, there are already two sections in the Australian Constitution that are called the race powers. One is Section 25, which gives state governments the power to ban Aboriginal people from voting. They haven't done it for many, many, many years, but it's still in our Constitution. The other is there is a section called 5126, which gives the federal government the power to make specific laws about groups of people, and they have done that in a negative way as it comes to Aboriginal people. We cannot go forward as a nation having a constitution that gives governments the power to enact laws that could be determined as racist. It's unacceptable.
James, you'd like to see that eliminated. I mean, that's...
Yeah,
that reference to race.
I entirely agree with Linda on that. I think that Section 25, as you said, is redundant and unnecessary. There'd be no harm if that was removed. Section 5126, as starting from a first basis of principles, I would prefer it not be in there. But one of the things that some Indigenous leaders have told us is if you took out 5126, that would damage, for example, native title laws, and would create uncertainty about native title laws. So while if we were writing a constitution today, it will include no references to race, it's in many in the Indigenous community who tell us we must have at least a power there to make laws for Indigenous people, whether it's for the promotion of culture or history or language. There must be some way of the federal government addressing these issues.